Well, I'll be. This episode certainly was a surprise. Even though last week's episode made sure to let us know that the series can become unpredictable, and even if an episode focuses on a character, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to die. But even then, even though that was kind of a big example in the previous episode, I still expected Sheep to probably end up dead in this episode because of all of the focus on him. I just figured he was going to die, but that was not the case. So, once again, I want to say, I'm really surprised with how this series is turning out. It's actually doing a very good job with its characters, with the world building to the characterization and all that. I'm just really loving this series. Juuni Taisen is probably one of my favorites of Fall of Anime 2017. But anyways, getting right into it, let's talk about the beginning part of the episode. Like the first 4 or 5 minutes. We get a little bit of world building and found out exactly what the Juuni Taisen is necessarily for. Now, we all know that it was a survival game, or death game. For instance, whoever is the last one standing, they get a wish and all that, and they can get whatever they want. And from what we've seen from this series, magical type stuff does happen, so bringing people back is definitely a possibility. We don't know exactly to the extent of how far these wishes can go, but we do know that they could probably be very powerful. So, most of us watching this series, we all assumed it was just a standard, survival game, death game. That's what we all thought this was. But after the beginning of this episode, it gives much clarification to what this series is really about. The reason why the Juuni Taisen is happening is not just for, individual families or whatever to get fame or power, it's also to shape the world's map, shape who controls different countries, who controls more, and has more political power. And that's basically what the start of this episode was letting us know, that whoever wins the Juuni Taisen, it's not just the fact that they get the wish they want, it's also that it shapes the maps. For instance, maps will be rewritten, and for instance, the family or whoever wins, they get to actually have more control over the world. So this is why a tournament is held every so often, just for this can be done. It also is like a proxy war. It's not an official war, it's a proxy war for they don't have to have big armies going against each other. They can have a small war that's contained a little bit in a certain area, and then they can, have whatever they want, granted, once it is done, whoever does necessarily win. So I like the world building of this. A really good episode just for that alone. Let's talk about it. It's clear as day now after watching this episode that the Juuni Taisen could definitely be set into a variety of different locations. As we know, the survival game going on right now for the series, it's in the middle of a city. It's a big city that apparently was wiped out. All of, the civilians and stuff, they were completely wiped out. We don't know exactly how it happened, but the civilians were wiped out without a trace, and nobody really knows. And obviously, most likely the news or media are not even talking about it because there would be cameras and all that all over the place if people did know about it. So whatever happened, whatever organization did this, it was able to kind of snuff out all news, media and all that, quiet all the other families from other cities and stuff. It's pretty impressive and actually scary at the same time. However, though, it's besides just being set in a city, we do know now that after watching this episode, the Juuni Taisen could be even set in space. We actually see one of the matches where the sheep, the Zodiac, sheep, he was in space and he won the Juuni Taisen. So this lets us know that the Juuni Taisen doesn't necessarily have to be even on Earth. It could be on a space station on the moon. It doesn't have to be on the planet. So the location changes every single time, which makes a lot of sense when you think about the context of what this is actually for. Let me give a good example here. As we know, all of these families, they kind of choose who they want to be like their person that stands for them, and then makes it to where they get a lot of, political power, and they are able to shape the world the way they want, basically. These families choose their individual, person they want. And in this case, if they knew what battlefield to expect, it would make the Juuni Taisen very predictable, and then they would look for certain warriors that are able to just, I guess, fight in this certain environment, and it would be completely fine. And so that's why the environment always changes, because if it was always just a city, it would be too, I guess, unlevel. It would be unbalanced for certain, participants, because they would know what to expect, and then some, would just cater to that certain environment, even though maybe some of these warriors might be better in an environment like a desert or something. So I do like that. I like the clarification of why the Juuni Taisen basically is getting changed, is probably because of this reason, to make it a little bit more balanced and fair. Now, also, apparently the survival game, there's bets going on, so it's actually turning into more like a Hunger Games type situation than anything else. It's where they're betting now, whoever wins, they get money or whatever, so that's pretty interesting when you see that little reveal in this episode. So, moving into the main stuff, though, Sheep. Sheep is the character that is in the spotlight this week of the Juuni Taisen episode, and like I said, I figured he was going to end up dead. I really thought he was going to die before this episode was done, just because of how much focus he was getting, but also he's an old man type character in this type of series. Usually those type of characters, they don't last long at all. They usually die off very quickly, and I do believe that Sheep is probably going to die. I believe it's just a matter of time until he dies, and most likely he's going to die in the next episode against Tiger, but I'll save that for later on in this video. But for now, though, I really like, Sheep's psyche. I like how he works and how he thinks out things and how he is very aware of his flaws, weaknesses, and what he can and cannot do. I like that little aspect about his character, especially when he was analyzing everybody in the competition and all that. He was analyzing and letting them know, like, there's just no way I could fight these people right now. Like, there's just no way. I'm an old man and all that. Even though I may have won a Juuni Taisen, it doesn't mean that I'm automatically going to win. I like how he wasn't arrogant. I like that, because usually when you see series like this, when someone wins a competition or whatever, and they're like an old-timer, usually they kind of get arrogant in a way, and I like how he wasn't like that. He really actually matches his age. He was very wise. He wasn't actually underestimating anyone a part of this competition, and at the same time, he was someone that wasn't getting too cocky. He was just using his knowledge and expertise to be able to have an advantage against the opponents of the Juuni Taisen. In this case, that's what he did. He had his mind, he had his wisdom, he had experience over everyone else, and that's what he was doing. He was analyzing different people and who he could work with, form his own team, before he could stand a chance in the upcoming battles against the top three, which is Monkey, Ox, and also Rabbit. Those are the top three most likely to win, so he wanted to figure out a team that he could possibly work with to give him a better chance before he could actually, win this competition. So, I like how he took the time to analyze all this, and it really impressed me with the fact that Juuni Taisen took an extra level of depth that made me really appreciate this episode. Normally, when there's series like this, like, when characters are dropping like flies, it's a survival game or whatever, normally characters that are analyzing stuff, they automatically factor in that a character's dead. Okay, let me explain. You know how Boar died on the first episode, okay, and we all thought she was probably going to be the main character? Well, in this episode, Sheep was assuming that Boar was still alive. We even see, like, a glimpse in his head when he was figuring out, like, okay, so I'll talk to Boar like this, or I'll talk to Dog like this, and so he was unaware of who was actually alive or not, and that is what really made me like this episode, because he had no idea who was alive, who was dead, and normally when you see, series like this, they make the characters automatically assume certain people are already dead out of nowhere, and it's like really bad writing, and you're just like, how did they know? How were they there? And it makes you really question that. So I'm glad that he still was factoring in Boar, Dog, and Chicken, and all of that, while, they're already dead. We know they're dead, but I'm liking that he was factoring that in, because it makes it a little bit more realistic. So yeah, anyways, let's talk about Tiger. So Tiger, at the end of this episode, just automatically, she bae. She bae. Like, she bae. Like, I like her. Like, okay, I like Monkey. I like her design. I like them stockings and all of that, the garter belt, but oh man, like Tiger. I gotta be honest here. I really like Tiger after this episode. And I like that little personality trait when she's just sitting there laying down on the bench. She's just drinking and all that, like drinking alcohol. And you have it toward the old man. He's like, oh, why? She's the type of person I hate the most and all that, or the type of person I hate. And then, like, definitely the weakest of all of us. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh yeah. Right now, it's obvious for the old man to be saying this. It's obvious that Tiger is probably one of the strongest there. She's probably the dark horse. And I'm like, this is probably going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to more of her character because I really like her. And just seeing her getting drunk and all that, I was just laughing because she's just taking it just so chill. Because, I mean, everybody's killing each other. They're fighting in a survival game, and she's just sitting there getting drunk. She's just drinking on a bench in the middle of a park and all that, just chilling. I'm like, seriously? If there's one thing we can give this series is that it's very unpredictable, and that was definitely an unpredictable moment for the episode. So, let me talk about the compatibility chart now. You know how I've been bringing it up the past couple episodes? Well, I want to mention, the compatibility between Sheep and Tiger. So, looking at the chart I saw earlier before starting this video, basically, it seems like Sheep and Tiger are a perfect match. They can actually be soulmates. So, there is a very likely possibility that even though they're opposites, and he said he didn't like her, there's a a very slim chance that this could be his partner that he was wanting to work with. For instance, he's trying to find a teammate, and since technically they could be soulmates, that means that most likely these two could be working together, which sounds very funny. Just the old man with like this, you know, weird drunk girl, tiger girl. That just sounds like a very interesting and funny combo. So I would love to see that. I really hope that's actually what happens, seeing these two work together. But there is still a chance that since he's underestimating her, she's probably going to kill him. Because if I had to assume anything, I want to assume that her getting drunk is actually something to do with her power. Most likely she knows like drunk kung fu or something. That's what I'm assuming, because we gotta remember that this is, if I'm assuming so, this is kind of based off the Chinese zodiac. So I want to assume that, you know, the writer of the Monogatari series most likely is trying to maybe acknowledge certain fighting styles, and I could definitely see, you know, drunk kung fu being a big example here. Maybe she knows that, and that's why she's getting drunk. Who knows? Maybe she's not necessarily a good fighter until she is drunk. Who knows? So, I just wanted to point that out. Now, one last thing to talk about is the old man's, like, determination to actually participate in the Juuni Taisen. I like how the old man, he's taking it upon himself to kind of free his grandchild from being a part of this. He wants to make sure that his grandchild doesn't have to be a part of the Juuni Taisen, and he wants to make sure that his grandchild can live a very long life, which is a very honorable act, and it made me really respect this character because it's very obvious that the old man's going to die. And so when he does die, at the very least, he protected his child, or his grandchild. He protected his grandchild from possibly dying early in this tournament. So I'm glad. I'm really happy and glad the way this was done, and I just really appreciate this character because it shows he's a really kind-hearted individual. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about this episode? How do you feel about Monkey going up against Rabbit in this episode as well? Please be honest in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. And if you like this video, please leave a like. Love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.